Oh, that's right, boys and girls. After more than 2 years away, the network game is back. If you missed out on the network game last time around on FM22, it's very simple. It's a Football Manager network game. As the name suggests, it's me versus Zealand versus Dr. Benji versus Work the Space. And at the end of it all, I get declared the winner. At least that's how it worked out last time. I usually win these things in my capacity as the greatest Football Manager player in the history of the world, and I'm going to prove it yet again in this series. The network game starts right here, but what's it all about? So this, boys and girls, is going to be a little bit of an explainer of the network game and a recap of what happened on last night's stream. Normally this would be a highlights video, but because I haven't streamed multiplayer gaming for like 2 years and haven't streamed it out of my new office, we ballsed up the setup. So basically we do have a VOD of last night over on Twitch, but it doesn't have anyone else's audio on, so it's just me. I have asked the other three if they could redo all the bits they said, and they're not up for it. So I'm just going to recap what went on. So we decided we were going to manage in the Premier League. We're probably only going to do one season because we've only got, 6-8 weeks, who knows, until FM25 is out. So it should give us time for one season, or at the speed Zealand plays, 2 weeks. 2 weeks in game, maybe. So we wanted to be Premier League clubs, big Premier League clubs, but not Manchester City. So we made a custom database where Manchester City have been taken out of the Champions League. As you can see, they are down in the Europa League. We've also taken Aston Villa out of the Champions League and then taken the rest of the traditional Big Five. Some people try and call it a Big Six, but no one's describing Spurs as part of a Big Six, surely. So the traditional Big Five, the other four are all in the Champions League. So it's Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United. They're the four teams that we're going to be managing. Each one of those four teams was then given a £200 million transfer budget. And then we had an hour-long argument about whether or not we were going to allow transfers to be done in instalments. And I lost the argument because Zealand's got more viewers than me and there was a vote. I think it's very unfair. We're playing a very unrealistic version of Football Manager where instalments won't be allowed. So we have our £200 million transfer budget and we are only allowed to do flat transfer fees. No instalments, no add-ons, no sale percentages, nothing like that. Just flat transfer fees with £200 million to spend. And obviously we are able to raise more money through selling unwanted players within the squad as well. Once we'd finished arguing about whether or not we were able to use instalments, it then was a matter of deciding who would be managing who. And obviously there is a clue behind me. We did a random draws, who's spinning wheels. Dr. Ben did all of the spinning and I was the first name out of the hat and I drew Arsenal. So I am the Arsenal manager, and then Zealand got Chelsea, Jack got Liverpool, and Ben is managing Manchester United. So we had our teams, we had our budgets, we had our ridiculous restrictive rules that nobody wants to play under. And it was then time to crack on and do some transfers. And these are the transfers that I did. If we go into the transfer summary, you can see we raised a little bit of money by selling Tomiyasu to Inter for £41.5 million. We also sold Kiwior to Napoli for £27 million and used that money plus our £200 million transfer budget to go and sign some world-class players to plug some of the gaps in the squad. So we got Manuel Neuer to be the new goalkeeper. We didn't necessarily need a goalkeeper. David Raya is a good goalkeeper, but he's not the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. Neuer is going to come in as the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. Yes, he's 38, but we're only going to do one season, so it doesn't matter that he's 38 years old. He's still one of the best goalkeepers in the world. He's a proper out-and-out sweeper keeper, the originator of the sweeper keeper. And I mean, why would you not want Neuer? £13.5 million seems like an absolute bargain. He is in. He will be our number one. And then we were just building the rest of the team around him from there. There was a bit of a hole in midfield, a Granit Xhaka shaped hole that still hasn't really been filled. We are playing with the latest transfer update on. So we do have Mikel Merino, Raheem Sterling is in, Raya is a permanent Arsenal player. I think, was that it for the summer transfers? But I still felt like there was a little bit of a gap in midfield. And when we saw Aurelien Tchouameni available on what I would consider to be a cut price, £65 million, less than Real Madrid paid for him, it seemed like a little bit of a no-brainer. He allows us to have the option to maybe sell Thomas Partey, maybe sell Jorginho, and then play a midfield three of Tchouameni, Rice and Odegaard, which seems like a pretty useful midfield three to me. And plus, with him being 6'2" and made of meat, jumping reach and heading both at 14, he's going to be a threat from set pieces as well. And of course, in PvP Football Manager, more so even than in a single player game, set pieces become crucial. If you watch any of the coverage of the FIFA E World Cup, you'll have seen Jack get 30 goals a season out of his centre backs during his Sporting save. We know Work the Space is going to be doing antics, so we need to match him with similar antics, and Tchouameni is going to help us as part of that. We then decided we needed a striker. Obviously, in real life, Kai Havertz, second best striker in the Premier League, behind Erling Haaland. Anyone who disagrees is just wrong. Unfortunately, though, in Football Manager, he's not even a natural striker. And really, he's going to be a backup to our midfield three, probably. He's another big physical presence, similar to what we get with Tchouameni. In fact, the exact same 14-14 for jumping reach and heading. But he's not really got a position, unlike in real life where he kind of found his position over the course of last season and established himself as that starting striker. Not so in FM. So we needed an out-and-out striker because we had him, we had Jesus, we've got Trossard, all these players who can play up front, but nobody who's really going to make that centre-forward position their own and bang in 30 goals for us. And that's where Randall Kolo Muani comes in. 25 years old, another big boy, 6'2", with a 15 jumping reach, 13 heading. So another one who's going to be an aerial threat. But this guy's quick as well. 17 for his acceleration and pace. He is going to score an absolute hatful of goals for us. And although £88 million is a lot of money, that's because we couldn't do any add-ons. We actually could have got this agreed much lower if we'd have done any add-ons or like sell-on fees or anything like that. We weren't allowed to do any of it, so we did have to slightly overpay for him to get him through the door. But he is in, and I expect he is going to score a lot of goals for us. And then the final signing that we got in just under the wire at the end of last night's stream, Achraf Hakimi. We didn't necessarily need him. Obviously, we've got Ben White, we've got Jurrien Timber. But if we look at the squad planner, right back was showing us one of the weaknesses of the squad. And they're both only showing us 2.5 stars of current ability, no better than Thomas Partey. So although in real life, I'd be very happy with those two as options, in FM, throw Hakimi in there. Why not? Probably the best available right back in the game. It would have been nice to be able to get Trent Alexander-Arnold or a fully fit Reece James, but obviously they're owned by other managers within the network game, so getting them was never going to be an option. Although Zealand did accept £70 million for Reece James, but then he got injured. So unlike him. So I went for Hakimi in the end, and that means that my starting 11 should look a little bit like this. In fact, shall we actually put together a starting? This is not going to be my starting 11. So obviously we're going to have Neuer in goal, the back four of Gabriel and Saliba. I expect this guy to get well into double figures for goals this season. He's going to be my main aerial threat from corners. At left back, I'm inclined to potentially start with Kieran Tierney if we can keep him fit. He's still at the club, and the way I like proper wing backs, unlike how Arsenal play in real life with all that inverting stuff, I like a proper wing back. I want my wide players to be cutting in further up the field. We're probably going to have Sterling on one side and Saka on the other, and we're going to want both of those boys cutting in. So I want my width to come from my wing backs pushing on, hence bringing in Hakimi to play right back. And I think we go Tierney left back. Obviously, we do have the options in those fullback areas to use the likes of Zinchenko, Timber, White, Calafiori. Calafiori actually played centre forward for us in one of our pre-season friendlies when we put 7 goals past Jack's Liverpool team. Calafiori's scoring. You can see he is now a makeshift striker. We might train him to play centre forward. What's the worst that can happen? But no, I think that's likely to be my starting back four. We then have our midfield, which is going to have probably Tchouameni at the base of it, and then Declan Rice here. You could swap those two around if you wanted to swap those two around. In fact, in FM, it's probably better that way around. In real life, I'd perhaps do it that way around, but I think in FM, we maybe do that. And then obviously have Odegaard there. You do have the option as well of doing that version of it and playing the double pivot and pushing Odegaard a little bit further forward. That's something you'll definitely see me doing as well, I'm sure. And then that front three is all pace. Sterling, Saka, Kolo Muani, and then you've got Jesus, you've got Havertz, you've got Trossard, you've got Martinelli. There's so many options to come off that bench. We've got great strength in depth. The one area where we're a little bit light for strength in depth, having sold Kirior, is potentially at centre-back, although obviously with who I'm planning on using as my fullbacks, you've now got Ben White and Calafiori and Timber all in the mix to play centre-back as well. So it's not actually as light as maybe it would seem on first impression. But I think we've got enough within our squad to have a solid starting 11 and backup 11, backup players for every position. Obviously, we want to win the league. We want to win the Champions League. And I think we've got a decent squad to allow us to try and do that, and not very much in the way of money left over. As you can see, once we cover that budget, we are pretty much spent up, and we're going to have to sell if we want to buy any more. There are still a couple of players I might sell with a month to go on the transfer window. I'm thinking Trossard is probably someone we don't need, with Sterling and Kolo Muani having joined the club. If we can get 30 or 40 million pounds for Trossard, we potentially let him leave. Obviously, he's well down the pecking order in all of the positions that he can play. He's behind all of those guys on the left, all of those guys on the right, all of the... You see what I mean? He's like third reserve in every position. He's handy to have, but not essential to have. So Trossard is potentially one that we let go. Likewise, Jorginho, as much as I like him in real life, I don't know that he's necessarily going to fit in, especially with Tchouaméni at the club. We might sell Partey because we could probably get more money for Partey, but if Partey stays, then I think we let Jorginho go. It's yet to be seen if Marino is going to be any good, but I think Jorginho could probably move on, and then potentially we could let a fullback go as well. On the right, I think we probably need all three of them, especially because they cover at centre-back as well, White and Timber, and Partey obviously isn't going to play there. On the left-hand side, though, with Zinchenko, Tierney, Timber and Calafiori, I don't think we need all three of them, all four of them, sorry. So we could potentially, because of his lack of being able to cover in other positions, he says he can play literally everywhere. But Zinchenko's not going to play in midfield. If someone wants to give me 50 or 60 million for Zinchenko, we happily let him go. So if we could let Zinchenko, Jorginho and Trossard all leave before the window closes, that's potentially another 120 million pounds, which we could then use to go out and get even more shiny goodies, potentially a proper backup to Odegaard. Obviously, we've got Nwaneri, but in a one-season save, we're not really going to use him. Havertz could be the guy to be his backup, but with Trossard leaving, there's not much beyond Havertz. So we maybe go out and get another attacking midfield player, maybe another central midfield player for moving Jorginho and Zinchenko on. Question marks over Marino. Partey could still leave as well, and we could be left with just Rice, Tchouaméni and a question mark covered Marino as our defensive midfielders. So maybe we get another guy in there as well. So there's still things to do with a month to go. They'll all happen on next week's Network Game stream, which will be live on Twitch at 4 p.m. next Wednesday. And I promise I will get the audio sorted so we can have actual highlights come here to they'll be on the main channel. I think we'll have highlights on the main channel. The VODs will go up on LOLLUJO too, just so that you can keep up to date with what's going on. But it's obviously not just me playing, so we'll have a quick look at what everyone else has done as well. This is going to be a little bit of an eye-opener for me, because I'm not quite sure what business they've done. So Zealand is managing Chelsea, and I know he's been pretty active in terms of moving players on. He's been trying to sell his fringe players. So Jimmy J. Morgan has gone to Brighton for £15 million. This is what Chelsea have got that I don't have at Arsenal. I don't really have any young players I can move on for big money. Samuel Smith has gone to West Ham for £6 million, and Axel Disasi has gone to Al Hilal for 48 million. So he's freed up some cash to spend. Obviously, a lot of transfers already joining Chelsea this summer. They already have a very big squad. So rather than necessarily needing to fill up with depth, he's gone out and got a particular profile of players, that profile being Football Manager meta players. He is a rascal. So he's got Klosterman, who's come in to be his new centre-back, presumably. Quick, big, strong boy. He's got Dumfries to come in and play up that right-hand side. Again, quick, big, strong boy. I wonder what Zealand's plan is. Gyökeres, who I did look at, but decided I would go Kolo Muani instead. Both me and Zealand were going for both this guy and Calvert-Lewin at one point. Calvert-Lewin agreed to join me. Gyökeres agreed to join Zealand, and then I pulled out of Calvert-Lewin to go Kolo Muani. If this guy gets 30 goals this season, I'll be a little frustrated, because we could have had him for that £40 million mark. He's got Moffey as well, who's another big, quick guy. there's definitely a profile to these signings. And then Football Manager meta written all over him, Diamonde again to play centre-back / right-back. So he's gone out and got some defenders and some strikers and some right-backs, and they're all big and strong. So I don't know if we get a clue as to what kind of tactic he's going to be looking to play. It's looking like a 4-2-3-1. I am delighted if he decides to use Cole Palmer, because in my experience, Cole Palmer, not very good in Football Manager. I ended up signing him in my Birmingham rebuild because he was released by Chelsea, having not been very good at all. So if Zealand is using some of that real world knowledge that those rascals brag about, he's going to be a little bit upset about the performances of that guy, I suspect. But I mean, it's a strong looking team, isn't it? Much stronger. I was going to say much stronger than real life. Most of it is the real life team. In fact, only one of his new signings is actually in there. So I don't know if he's gone out for depth or if this was just a final pre-season friendly. Can we get a little bit of a clue as to what he's actually doing? He's playing a few different. So he's done a 5-2-2-1 there. So this is where he's getting all of the big boys on together, I guess. Yeah, he's getting all of it. I mean, that's very Football Manager hideousness. Flat back 7. If he plays that in the network game, he is the king of the cowards. I don't appreciate the fact that he's beaten Peterborough as well. Very sad. Did lose 4-0 to me, though. Absolutely spanked him. And I'd like to point out as well, absolutely spanked him with that very rotated team when he put out that very strong team. We're just better than it. I mean, hold the phone. Hold the phone. Look at it. There's levels to Football Manager, boys and girls, and it really amuses me that people think Zealand is anywhere near mine. He's just not playing the same game, is he? Bless his cotton socks. Right, Jack's Liverpool team then. Let's see what he's done here. I know there was lots of talk on stream that he'd basically ripped the heart and soul out of Liverpool's. I think the first couple of things he's done is taken the captain and the vice captain and told them both they can leave on a free transfer at the end of the season, rather than giving them the expensive new contracts they want. Because we're only doing a 1-season save, he's just going to let them both leave, let them run their contracts down. So very short-term views from Jack. That should be the incentive for Zealand to play a little bit faster, so we have to do a second season. Because I think if Jack had to do a second season without those two, he's not going to enjoy himself anywhere near as much as he's going to enjoy this first season, having thrown some money around. His only real sale, Cody Gakpo, has gone to Bayern Munich for £47 million, and then he's gone out and spent big. So Jeremy Frimpong comes in from Leverkusen, Leverkusen, which I guess is going to be his Trent replacement. I think he's planning on playing Trent in midfield, looking at that signing. And then he's brought a midfielder in the shape of Rabiot. Deo Upamecano, another big, strong, fast boy. They're all after these meta defenders, aren't they? Marcus Thuram is in as well. And I mean, again, it was a bit of a coin flip for me when I decided I didn't want Gyökeres or Calvert-Lewin. It was, okay, do I want Thuram or Kolo Muani? I went Kolo Muani. Thuram's obviously a little bit bigger, but not as quick. If we do a comparison of the two of them, I think I got the better of this deal. So my guy, better in the air, even though he's not as tall. He's also quicker, but he's not quite as technical and not quite as physical. I think in terms of Football Manager meta, you want the guy who's better in the air and quicker. So I definitely think I got the best of this deal. So in addition to the second best striker he could have got after the guy I got, he also got N'Golo Kante, which is a guy I looked at, but decided it would be insane to pay anybody £400,000 a week. This is why he's not been able to renew Van Dijk and Trent's contracts, because he spent so much money going way over budget for that guy. The man's lost his mind. Let's have a look at the team he's looking at putting out. I mean, so he is going Kante and Alexander-Arnold in midfield, which is interesting. Gomez at right back is really interesting. I mean, considering the amount of money he's spent, it doesn't look that different, does it? But obviously, expect Virgil van Dijk to get 30 goals this season using Jack's hacked corner tactic that he used at the FIFA World Cup. And that midfield is going to be an interesting one. I guess we'll see how Trent gets on in midfield. Can't possibly go wrong, can it? As England showed in the summer. And then lastly, if we have a look at Ben's Manchester United team, if we head back to the Premier League, so Manchester United, arguably the weakest squad of the four going in, although Chelsea probably do a hold my beer meme off the back of that. The only player we sold is Victor Lindelof, £13.5 million to Brighton. And obviously United had already spent a lot of money over the course of the summer. In fact, has Ben Was Ben in the stream? Is he playing? What's going on here? He signed one guy. He signed Bastoni, which, I mean, yeah, it's a good signing. Another meta defender, 6'3", big, strong, fast, very good defender. And then he signed Scott McTominay on loan, which is genuinely fascinating that's happened. I have to wonder. I mean, he's obviously got a play. His plan is presumably to let us spend all our money, and then he's going to have the pick of what's left over without us having to compete with him for it, because he must still have like £150 million still to spend. So plenty of money left available for Ben. Looks like he's doing a coward's tactic, a flat back seven, with Harry Maguire as part of his midfield three. Kind of outweighs the Bastoni signings. I guess De Ligt goes in there when he's fit. He's not fully fit at the moment. And then all of United's real life summer signings, I guess, being sprinkled in as well. And then a front three, which should be quite good in Football Manager. But I think there's going to be plenty more spending to come from Ben. If he's happy there, he's bonkers. One thing that he might be planning, and it's a bit of a risk because he could be well off the pace by the time this happened. In addition to the no installments rule, we did agree that in January we can pay on installments. So there is potential benefit in a long-term game of saving the money for January, because that £150 million he's got left when used on installments allows him to have a £600 or £700 million spending spree in January when the rest of us are going to have no money left. Theoretically, obviously, we could sell players and do the same thing. So I don't know. It's a risky strategy. I expect we're going to see Ben spend some money in next week's stream. But if we have a look at the media prediction, based on what we've done so far, Man City, as you would expect, still favourites to win the league. Jack's Liverpool side, second favourites. My Arsenal side, third. And then Ben's Man United and Zealand's Chelsea, way off the pace because their signings have been bobbins. What more could you possibly expect? And that, boys and girls, is your little taster for what's to come on the network game. Like I say, it's going to be coming back again next Wednesday, 4 p.m. on Twitch. We'll all be streaming it at the same time, so you can watch all streams together and we'll be talking to each other. And like I say, there'll be highlights here next week as well. Proper actual highlights, because I won't balls up the recording next week. But hopefully this makes up for it. It's probably more useful at this stage of the save because sets the scene properly and lets you know what's going on. All you'd have got if it had been highlights was just moaning at Zealand to press continue and making bum jokes because we're silly boys. So at least this way you know who we're managing, what the rules are and what signings we've done so far. I feel like I've just done a proper little Sky Sports News style highlights summary of the network game so far. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a thumbs up on it for me. Subscribe to the channel for loads more Football Manager content. And thank you very much for watching.